Hello, and welcome to the preview video for the 2020-2021 parent kickoff meetings for the Ragged Mountain competition programs. Face masks. I don't think there's anybody watching this who can't say that these are not part of their daily lives at this point, and that will continue to be the case through our ski programs this year. Fortunately, I am in my office right now and able to remove it for the sake of this video. I'd like to welcome everybody and start off by thanking everybody for your dedication to your kids and to this mountain and this team. This is a challenging time for everybody, and it's also a time that athletics and keeping our kids healthy and active is more important than ever. So with that, those of you who are returning know that I normally do a slideshow, a PowerPoint presentation, and go over a whole bunch of stuff. Unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, I can't seem to get the PowerPoint to record into the video, so I've decided to do this video, and I'm going to request that you watch the follow-up videos from some of our other community members. So, to try and make the amount of time you have to sit behind the screen as short as possible, I'm going to try and really just kind of go over some of the key things that everybody's been thinking about. Obviously, COVID-19 is the very top of that list and how it's going to impact our lives and our program. So you all should have already received this document here that kind of goes over the COVID-19 guidelines and modifications for the competition programs, but I'm just going to kind of hit some of the bullet points, and if you have the document handy, you're welcome to follow along, obviously. So we've delayed releasing stuff as long as possible so that we could try and stay current and try to be as accurate as possible. And as you all know, things are changing so fast that sometimes the plans you make today are changed by tomorrow. With that said, I feel like we have a good, solid plan in place, and I think we're in a good shape for providing a safe, healthy environment for your athletes this year. I do want to start off by letting everybody know the second floor of the Meeting House Lodge, which is the area where my office is, as well as where the athletes typically gather. This year, this space is being referred to as the Comp Center during the weekends and on training days. This space will not be open to the public at all this year, and it will be used for other programs during the week and for us exclusively on the weekends and training days. Obviously, the big safety things are going to be masks and social distancing. It's outlined in the document, but I'm going to read it here. So face masks covering the mouth and nose are required for parents, athletes, and staff for the following: whenever inside any base area building unless seated and eating, while outside in the base area, while in lift lines, while riding a lift, while unloading a lift, while waiting in training lines, and whenever 6 feet of spacing cannot be maintained. And I'm really going to ask for parents to help reinforce this, not only by modeling it yourself, but by following up with your athletes and letting them know some of the challenging spots. Reminding kids that anytime they're in the base area, or athletes as a whole, they need to have a mask on when they're waiting in line for the lift, and then especially when they're riding up the lift. That's a very tempting time to just let that mask come down. That mask needs to stay on while on the lift too. Ragged Mountain has adopted a zero tolerance policy on masks, and my understanding is that if somebody is seen without a mask, they will be asked to leave. If it is a repeat occurrence, they will be asked not to come back. This is simply one of the resorts out there that is saying, don't be the reason we don't have a season or something, or be the reason we have a season. Maybe that's it. We're all going to have to work together on this. A couple things while in the comp center during the very limited times that we're able to get in here. Only one family or traveling unit, people who showed up in the same vehicle, per table. Please do not move any of the tables or chairs. I know we like to move the chairs around. We have all of the tables spaced per restaurant guidelines, 6 chairs per table. Everything has to stay where it's at. I'm going to ask, so we're going to allow Little Rippers and development to get ready in the lodge. The rest of the programs will be able to access their cubbies. I would like to ask that only one parent per family come in and, in and out as quickly as possible. So speaking of cubbies, you all saw the email that I sent out prior to this. So that is something unique to our program. There's no bags allowed in the lodges anywhere else in the resort, or frankly within the industry as a whole. And I was able to advocate for assigning cubbies to our athletes so that they could keep some of that essential gear in those cubbies. Things like chin guards, extra goggles, hand warmers, stuff that we couldn't really send a young child out to their car to get, and they might need to take on and off throughout the day. The guidelines around those cubbies are you can only use their cubby, and it has to be on a training day, and everything they put in the cubby has to fit 100% in the cubby. It can't be hanging out. It can't be touching anybody else's gear. No sharing of personal items. If your friend forgets their goggles, as much as I would love for you guys to be able to say, oh, look, I have an extra pair, we can't do that this year. We've really got to keep everybody's belongings to themselves. Everybody knows the RMST capes. Those are what we use on race days, up at the starting line, keep athletes warm. Again, we're not going to be able to share those this year. So we're going to have to plan appropriately on race days to really wait till the last possible minute to take off snow pants, draping the athletes' own coats around their shoulders, things like that. Something new regarding our outbuildings, so our timing sheds, the new registration building, the gate sheds. When no athletes or parents are going to be allowed in those this year at all, with the exception of the 2 volunteers who would be in there in the registration building on a race day. So riding lifts is going to be a big thing this year. Ragged is still finalizing the actual wording and the documentation, but my understanding is that lifts will be either a family riding a lift or people on opposite ends of the lift will be allowed to ride together. I believe we are going to allow for our younger groups, so our Little Rippers, maybe some of the younger development athletes, to be able to have 3 athletes on the 6-pack with 2 on the ends and 1 in the middle so that they can safely get the bar down. We do want to say any athletes and parents who travel outside of the United States or the New England states, we ask that you quarantine for 14 days or supply a negative COVID test before returning to the program. Probably one of the biggest things to remember this year is all of this is obviously subject to change at any point. And we'll do our very best to keep you up to date and comprised of any changes as quickly as possible. One of the words one of the lines in here is being fluid and adaptable will be needed this winter. And that couldn't be more true. We've just got to be ready to roll with whatever we're dealt. And we're going to make the best of it. We're going to get your kids some really good quality training, and they're going to have some fun, even within the restrictions. I do want to point out race families, competition families, some of the most dedicated people in skiing and riding. And they're also planners, so they like to show up. We know that there's going to be a lot of restrictions to the lodge, and so you might want to plan for being out in the car and having lunch and getting ready. There are some rules around the parking lot. There can't be any fire pits or sources of open flame. No RVs, no overnight camping, and no alcohol of any sort will be permitted in any of the Ragged Mountain Resort parking lots. And that wording is pretty universal across the industry in New Hampshire. Just kind of buzzing down through here. It's a good idea. Make sure your athletes have some snacks they can keep in their pockets to have during the day. I'm going to go over the schedule now. We went back and forth on this a lot in trying to figure out how to accommodate everybody, give everybody a good solid day of training and enjoying themselves, and making it so that everybody could take care of their own children. Many of our coaches have athletes in the program. Oftentimes they're not in the age group they're coaching. So we kind of had to line some things up. So where we landed is U10 through U19, Saturday Masters, and snowboard athletes will be allowed into the lodge, the comp center, between 8 and 8:25 in the morning. And that will be to come in, go to the bathroom, put their stuff in their cubby, and go back outside. There's no hanging out inside. They're not sitting at a table. They're coming in, putting their stuff away, and going back out. All of those athletes are going to need to get ready at their cars or outside or at home before you get here. By 8:25, those athletes need to be outside at their designated meeting locations, which we will put out before day one. And that is where coaches will be collecting them. Coaches are going to go to the meeting locations and say, all right, guys, let's go. If your athlete is not there on time, you need to either find a coach when they come through the base area and ask them to radio up, or send one person in to find me or somebody else in the lodge in the comp center who can radio up. Don't just send your athlete up the hill to go find them. We really need to know who's on the hill and where they are. Lunch break will be from 11 to 11:55. No eating in the comp center. Lunches will all have to be either in the main lodge if you're ordering food, or at your vehicles. End of day for the U10 through U19 Masters and snowboard will be at 3 o'clock. So this is a little bit later than in the past, but we've done that in order to give them a good solid afternoon training block and also to accommodate the other two groups. Between 3 and 3:25, they'll be able to come in, access their cubby, get their stuff, and take it out to the car to go get undone for the day and head home. Race development will be able to access the comp center from 8:30 to 8:55. Race development athletes will be able to come in, get seated at a table, and actually boot up inside. Again, one parent per family, please. And once they're ready, we ask that they go back outside, not hang out. We do have sufficient tables and space that every family will get their own table. We ask that a parent brings the athlete to the designated location to ensure that the kid gets there. Lunch, again, will be, and that program will start at 9. So at 9 o'clock, at 8:55, they should be out there. At 9 o'clock, the coaches will gather them. Lunch will again be from 11 to 11:55. At the end of lunch, they all meet outside at their designated locations. Speaking of lunch, getting a little sidetracked here, it's going to be very, very important that parents are there to pick up their athletes, or their athletes know where they are going. As I pointed out, we have coaches who have kids that might be in other age groups, and they're going to be expected to get their kids and take them to their car and go have lunch. It's not going to be fair to our coaches if a coach has to stand there for 10, 15 minutes or even 5 minutes waiting for a parent to show up and collect their kid, and the coach can't go get their own kid to bring them to lunch. So really important to be there to pick up your athletes at 11 and have them back by 11:55 so they can go out for the afternoon session at noon. The race development squad will end at 2 o'clock and will be able to come inside from 2 to 2:25 to access their cubby. They do need to be out by 2:25 so the Little Rippers can get in. So moving on to the Little Rippers. Little Rippers is going to start a little bit later this year than in the past, and that is so that we could accommodate everybody, the Little Rippers in development, being able to get ready inside. So at 9 o'clock, Dev will be outside. They'll be headed off with their coaches. Little Rippers can start to come in and get ready. Again, one parent. And by 9:25, they need to be outside. At 9:30, coaches will take them and they will go start skiing for the day. Again, lunch is still 11 to 11:55. And the Little Rippers will end at 2:30. They will be down here. From 2:30 to 2:55, they can be in the lodge, in the comp center, getting ready, and they need to be out by 2:55 so that at 3 o'clock, the U programs and snowboarders can come in. We do have weekday training at times, particularly during vacations and holidays, and that's the guidelines for weekday training are going to vary depending on staffing and crowding at the mountain. And what we'll do is we'll communicate any requirements ahead of time. That's race specific stuff there. All right. Athletes, parents, and all staff members shall self-check for symptoms every day before heading into Ragged Mountain. We are all in this together as one team. So ask yourself each training/work day, have you experienced any of the following symptoms in the past 48 hours? Fever or chills, cough, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, fatigue, muscle or body aches, headache, new loss of taste or smell, sore throat, congestion or running nose, nausea or vomiting, diarrhea. If you are experiencing any COVID symptoms or have sustained close contact with anyone diagnosed with COVID-19 in the prior 14 days, or you have traveled outside of New England in the prior 14 days, please stay home. Do not train. We have to remember that, again, we're all in this together and we're all going to have to rely on each other's honesty and responsibility. If your kid is sick, please keep them home. If we have an athlete who's already here and we notice that they are experiencing symptoms, we will contact you and you will need to pick them up. So I strongly encourage everybody to please read through the document and familiarize yourself. As always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, and I'm sure we'll cover much of that in the Zoom meetings. Signing up for races. So jumping right into the races for this year. Schedules are still being finalized. The unscored children's racing is pretty well locked in. The focus is on divisional racing, so staying within the Western Division. So our races will be largely at Ragged, Sunapee, Ford Sayer, which is Dartmouth Skiway, and Whaleback. There are fewer races this year because of the fact that we had to really restructure the calendar because races are limited to 100 athletes. So the calendar got totally restructured to try and give athletes as many starts as possible while still fitting within the time frames. Racing will be a bit more expensive this year. And that is going to vary a lot from one resort to the other. Some resorts are charging, most resorts are charging full price for lift tickets. So in the past, a race that may have been $50 was probably, that included your lift ticket and your entry fees and everything. And this year, most resorts are going to have an entry fee, and then you have to buy a lift ticket. One advantage to that being, when we host races here at Ragged, as season pass holders, you'll only have to pay the registration fee, which we've made very affordable. But when you go to a race somewhere else, it's very possible that a race could be $100 once you're all in, or more. The scored race calendar is not yet finalized. There are quite a few races on that calendar, and it looks like, we could have a pretty good run of races, a lot of weekends. Those details will be ironed out in the coming days, and again, as soon as we have the calendars all locked in place, we will put out a schedule. Snowboard, USASA currently has not released any calendar yet. I did speak to our park manager today, and he spent time speaking to the head of USASA in New Hampshire, and they are hopeful that they're going to have some events. They're just not locked in yet, because it's really a matter of figuring out how exactly things are going to work. A lot of snowboarding events are kind of a blend between competition and socializing. They're jam session formats where they're going up and down. They're all mixed up, and that's a lot harder to manage in a COVID environment. Where racing, we can just kind of space everybody out. They go one at a time. It's a little easier to manage. I got Cubby Use on there. We've already covered that. Ski Club Pro, for those, everybody's familiar with it. You all used it to register. I'd like to remind everybody to occasionally go in and make sure your information is current. We do use that for all of our communications. It's going to be very important that parents have their cell phone numbers in there. They have their emergency contact info for the athletes. And email addresses are always current. For those that don't know, when we send emails out, we send it to the roster, and there's a section in there where you edit your athlete, and the email address that you put there for the athlete is if your athlete actually has their own email address. We also include guardians, and as you know already, you associate guardians with the athletes. And when we send an email, we say to include the guardians. And so all of those guardians will also get the emails. And you can add as many guardians as you want. You can add grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends, neighbors. It doesn't matter. You can add them all. Just be sure when you go in to edit your athlete, there's check boxes that say which guardians would you like to receive communications. And you got to make sure they're checked off, the ones that you want to. So please just make sure that's up to date. Masks and social distancing. So we've already covered that masks are going to be required. Skiing, snowboarding, competitions are very social. Many of our families get to be very close. They know each other, they've known each other for years. Some of these athletes may or may not be close to each other during the week. They may see each other. There might be a small core group of friends who has all tested, they're all determined they're safe, and they're hanging out together during the week. That's okay, but it can't happen here. We've got to be really strict about social distancing at all times. So when the athletes are on the lift, even though the two kids on the lift may hang out every Tuesday afternoon after school, while they're here, they need to stay spaced out on the lift. Everybody's got a camera on their phone, and we do not want to be the ones that end up on the news when there's a COVID outbreak and there's a group of racers going up the hill all snuggled up on the chair. So it's going to be important that we stay apart. Day one is next Sunday, December 13th, and I anticipate we'll be in pretty good shape by that point. Ragged is scheduled to open on Thursday, I believe it's the 10th. Does that make sense? 10. I don't know. And they fired up the guns yesterday. They're cranking away out there right now. We've got some pretty good whales of snow going. And I have full confidence that the groomers and the snowmakers here will get at least some trails open for Thursday, and they're going to keep going as hard as they can to get things open, and we'll be training pretty quickly. Everybody should show up next Sunday just ready to go. Practice it at home, especially those kids in the U10, U19 groups through U19. Sit out in your driveway and practice. How are you going to handle getting here and getting your kids ready in the parking lot? I was fortunate last year to be able to take my kids up to Waterville right before they closed, and there were the same restrictions in place. I brought an old comforter with us and our camp chairs and a cooler, and we rolled the comforter right out on the ground, set up the camp chairs, and that's how we got ready. But it's good to practice. Remember, ski boots get really, really stiff when they're cold, so keep those ski boots nice and warm, maybe next to the heater on the floor of the car while you're driving in, and when you take them out, put them on their feet. Don't let them get cold first. We're going to have our virtual meetings this week, and I'm hoping that for the most part, questions have been answered. I'm going to try to make those virtual meetings as short as possible. I'm sure you've all been in countless virtual meetings at this point, and your kids have been in virtual classes. I don't really want to tie people up for hours. So I may have a few more bullet points that I point out, but largely I believe that those meetings are going to be Q&A sessions where I just want to be able to address anybody's concerns and answer their questions. The plan is we're going to do 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week. Tuesday will be the U10s, U16s, U19s, Masters, and Snowboard groups. I know it seems a little strange to have the U10s in there, but we actually set these up to try and limit how many people are in the group at one time. We're also only allowed to have 100 people in our Zoom meetings. I do ask, if at all possible, please use only one computer per family to log in, so we don't have, mom on one screen, dad on another, and the athletes on another. Excuse me. That way we have room within the meeting for everybody to be able to get in. Wednesday will be the U12s and the U14s. Thursday will be Little Rippers and Dev. And I don't know 100% if all of the coaches will be in there, but I do anticipate many of them will be able to jump in. As always, if you guys have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. There's no bad questions or no bad concerns. I want to do everything I can to make sure you guys are all comfortable and you feel and you believe that we are going to give the safest, most enjoyable experience for your athletes this year. I can be reached at my desk at 603-768-3198, or as you all know, at race@raggedmountainresort.com. Following this video, I would like you all to please watch 3 additional videos. Elise McCaffrey, our volunteer coordinator, is going to give an overview of the volunteer program for the 2020-2021 season. We do have races on the calendar here, and for those of you who are returning, you're familiar with the process. For those that are new, racing and events in general take a massive amount of people to pull off, and so we rely on volunteers, and Elise will go over all of those program details. Just about the entire program is required. Masters, snowboard do not have to participate in volunteering, but Little Rippers, development, and the U programs all have to participate in the volunteer program. There's also a video by Carrie Brown. and she is going to go over a brand new program that the Ragged Mountain Ski Team is created, and it is a scholarship program. They are going to work on putting together a scholarship that they'll be able to offer to athletes in need in future years. This is a great thing, and I encourage everybody to get involved in that in whatever way you possibly can. And finally, Eric Skinner is going to go over a little breakdown of who the Ragged Mountain Ski Team is. He's got a short video, and Eric is not only a parent, a coach, he's also a member of the board. The Ragged Mountain Ski Team is the nonprofit that supports the Ragged Mountain competition programs, and they do an immense amount of stuff. The camera that I'm recording this video on was purchased by the ski team. The building that's currently sitting in the parking lot that will be up at the base area is a brand new building to house all of our race gates and our registration center with windows, and all of the bibs will go out there, and it's going to make it so we don't have registration inside the comp center. That was purchased 100% by the Ragged Mountain Ski Team. The free lap timing system, also purchased by them. A lot of our race gates are supported through the Ragged Mountain Ski Team. I really encourage everybody, listen to Eric's breakdown, and then find a way to get involved, whether it's through being a member of the board, serving on a committee, or donating to the program. And until next Sunday, that's all I have for now. Thank you very much, and think snow.